When a mind is disturbed, death and pleasure can become entwined. As they were one night in 1889 at Massachusetts General Hospital.
I have something for you to drink. It'll make you feel better.
Amelia Finney is a patient in pain. She hopes the medicine will bring relief. But her nurse's intent is not to heal. It's to harm.
She had no empathy for others. She enjoyed what she did.
She could only feel pleasure when she was inflicting pain.
Nurse Jane Toppin gives Amelia a toxic cocktail. As Amelia feels the effect, she's joined in bed by her nurse.
Can you imagine the fear? Waking up in your hospital bed with your nurse straddling you, looking into your eyes, and you are helpless to do anything, even cry out because she's overdosed you with a sedative?
Professor Harold Schechter believes Jane Toppin was one of the most dangerous nurses who ever lived.
Jane Toppin appeared to the world to be a very jolly and caring and nurturing human being. But of course, underneath that, she was the very opposite.
To understand what motivated Jane's crimes, Schechter would have to turn the clock back almost 150 years to New England in 1863. An alcoholic called Peter Kelly enters a Boston asylum. A sole parent, Kelly wants to be rid of his young daughter once and for all.
He was obviously totally incapable of dealing with her, and he put her into an orphanage.
6-year-old Jane will never see her father again. A well-to-do family later takes Jane in, but she is not treated as an equal.
Well, she was taken into this family called the Toppins, but she was never formally adopted, even though she took their name.
The Toppins have a daughter the same age as Jane. But while Elizabeth is lavished with affection and gifts, Jane is treated like a servant.
What are you doing here? Go away. Finish sweeping.
Jane feels excluded. Something in her mind is changing.
Beautiful.
She is becoming disturbed. "20 years later, Jane Toppin is a student nurse.
Hello, Mr. Chick.
While her fellow trainees are motivated by compassion and kindness,
Got a special dose for you today.
Jane is driven by darker desires.
The decision to become a nurse was hers alone, and I believe that decision was to gain access to potential victims. Hospitals became happy hunting grounds for her.
A great advantage of nursing for a personality like Jane Toppin is that it gave her ready access to very helpless victims that she could torture in the various ways that she enjoyed.
Jane is fascinated by the effects of drugs, especially morphine. Jane experiments with poisons on her patients, but Jane doesn't want Amelia to die, just yet.
And she felt Jane Toppin get into bed with her and pull her bedclothes aside and begin to caress her in a very, very erotic manner.
Amelia thinks she is dreaming, but the reality is far stranger. She's in the clutches of a nurse who feels perverse pleasure while watching her patients die.
Jane does not fit the classic profile of the mercy killer, the nurse killer, because of the sexual component of her crimes. of poisoning her victims with morphine and then crawling into bed with them and holding them and kissing them and then looking into their eyes as they were dying. This is not what we usually see. Jane was different.
Tonight, Jane Toppin's desire to kill will be unsatisfied. When someone else enters the ward, the murderous nurse flees. Amelia Finney recovers. Only years later would she realize how lucky she was that night. Her nurse would go on to become the most prolific female serial killer in American history.
She wanted to be the best and the most famous in the world, the highest body count. She might have achieved that.
Jane Toppin is known to have murdered 31 of her patients. She may have killed dozens more.
Nobody had ever encountered a female murderer, or really even a male murderer, who had killed so many victims so cold-bloodedly.
Jane is so disturbed it doesn't matter who she kills. Where there is death, she finds pleasure.
She murdered young and old. She murdered male and female. She murdered intimate friends and total strangers.
Yet there is one person she wants to hurt more than any other.
Thought I'd bring you some tea. Thank you, Jane.
For 30 years, she watched her foster sister Elizabeth enjoy a life of happiness and privilege. A life Jane herself could only dream of. Now, the time is coming to make her pay. In the summer of 1899 on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Elizabeth Brigham has mysteriously fallen ill. Her foster sister Jane appears eager to nurse her back to health.
She was a very, very successful private nurse. You know, people just thought that she was a very caring human being.
But Jane Toppin is not what she seems. She will kill 31 people and become America's most prolific female serial killer. Her latest target is her own foster sister.
The primary motivation seems to have been this long simmering resentment of a foster sister who had always seemed to receive so much better treatment from life than she herself had.
Go away. Finish sweeping.
Jane's jealousy of Elizabeth begins in their childhood. When Elizabeth marries a wealthy vicar, it intensifies. Once again, Jane feels left out.
Psychopaths like Jane Toppin, who feel they've been horribly mistreated by the world from a very, very young age, grow up to feel the need to take revenge on the world in turn.
For Jane, this revenge will be sweet and slow.
Jane Toppin took a great deal of pleasure in prolonging the pain and suffering of her victims, really stretching it out over days and even weeks.
A lot of killers are not sadistic. Jane was. She actually derived pleasure seeing the pain that she had inflicted on others. That is sadism.
Jane's sadism climaxes as Elizabeth takes her final breaths.
There are female serial killers who derive perverted sexual pleasure from inflicting death on their helpless victims. And Jane Toppin fell into that category.
Later, Jane admits that Elizabeth is the only victim she truly hated. This murder had a clear motive, but what about Jane's other victims? Could her murderous desires be tied to the mental history of her own family? The father who abandoned Jane when she was a child would later succumb to insanity.
His nickname was Kelly the Crack, as in crackpot. And there were these stories that at one point he sewed his own eyelids shut.
But while Jane's father suffered psychotic episodes, losing touch with reality, Jane herself had no such symptoms.
Her father's act of trying to sew his own eyelids shut is indicative of a very, very severe mental disorder, either schizophrenia or bipolar psychosis. Both of those are inheritable, but I don't think Jane Toppan was insane. Not at all.
Jane is clear-headed and calculated when she kills, making her all the more deadly.
Serial killers like Jane Toppan, they have to murder more and more frequently in order to produce that rush of pleasure.
Jane has been killing for 15 years. But when she's contracted to care for the Davis family, she takes her murder spree one step too far.
I don't think serial killers want to get caught. They simply get sloppy. They get away with it so many times that they begin to think they're invincible and invisible.
Jane is supposed to keep the Davises safe from harm. But one by one, over a period of 6 weeks, she kills them.
She ended up wiping out this entire 4-member family, and that is what ultimately led to her discovery and arrest.
The death of an entire family turns suspicion onto nurse Jane Toppan. She denies the killings, but under questioning by psychiatrists, she confesses in disturbing detail.
Jane was the type of sociopath who liked to brag about what she did. I'm sure every time she bragged about what she did and it shocked people, including the board of Victorian doctors, that gave her even more of a thrill.
Jane shows no remorse, the telltale sign of a sociopath. She spends the rest of her life in a mental institution and is remembered as the most dangerous and disturbed nurse who ever lived. A disturbed mind can lash out when it's least expected, as it did on a clear morning in Canyon Lake, California. 38-year-old Dana Sue Gray is setting out on a shopping trip.
There was something about money and having it and spending it that made Dana Sue feel important.
She looks like a typical suburban mom on her way to the mall. But Dana is a woman with a startling secret.
She used ligature strangulation. She used bludgeoning. She used knives.
Dana Sue Gray is a psychopath. She just committed a brutal murder. Now, she needs some retail therapy. 66-year-old June Roberts has been strangled and bashed with a bottle.
It crossed my mind that I had a serial killer on my hands.
No one has ever seen a serial killer like this one.
She's in a class all her own.
The killing spree begins 2 weeks earlier.
Norma, are you there, dear?
The community was very affluent, and they didn't have a lot of homicides.
Norma.
Alice Williams has not seen her neighbor, Norma Davis, for 2 days.
Where are you, dear?
She's concerned the 86-year-old has fallen ill. The reality is far worse. As a young woman, Dana enjoyed skydiving. But increasingly, it's her personal life that's going into free fall.
Dana's life right before the murders was chaotic. She had a lot of emotional setbacks. She had had a miscarriage. She had also sunken into depression and alcoholism, and she was accused of stealing drugs from her job as a nurse.
Fired from her job. Separated from her husband. She seeks solace in alcohol and prescription drugs. But when the drugs don't work, there is one thing guaranteed to make Dana Sue feel good.
Spending, purchasing made Dana feel high. It reduced her anxiety. It became compulsive, and it got way out of control.
Dana Sue is hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Her disturbed mind is becoming desperate. Desperate enough to kill. 2 weeks later, 66-year-old June Roberts answers a knock at the door.
Hey, June, I was wondering if I could...
Recently widowed, June welcomes the visit by a family friend. Little does she know, she has admitted a killer into her home. A killer who leaves her boyfriend's 5-year-old son waiting outside.
I think the fact that Dana Sue had her lover's 5-year-old boy in the car with her, waiting outside in the car while she went into these homes and killed these women, really speaks to the coldness and how little she thought that what she was doing was wrong.
Here it is, look.
It was very brutal. The victim had been strangled with her own telephone cord and actually tied to a chair. And she was struck so hard it fractured her skull.
She used her hands and extreme violence to kill her victims. We don't usually see this in female serial killers. We usually see poison or gun. With a gun, you can kill someone from afar. Dana Sue wanted hands-on.
But perhaps just as shocking as the murders is what Dana chooses to do next.
She didn't even go home after she killed these women and lay low for a while. She just needed to get to the mall.
Canyon Lake, California, 1994. 38-year-old Dana Sue Gray is in the mood to be pampered.
Dana was so meticulous about her appearance, and she always went to a salon for services, for manicures, pedicures, hair color, cotton color, all of that.
Beauty treatments make Dana Sue Gray feel good. But lately, she's found another activity that gives her a thrill. Murder. Dana is halfway through a month-long killing spree. Her first stop after killing her second victim is the mall.
What was taken from June was her checkbook and her credit cards, and right after the murders, Dana went out and she got a beauty treatment and she went shopping.
She immediately went out and drained their bank accounts and used their credit cards on high-ticket items, hundreds and hundreds of dollars, with a little kid in tow, her boyfriend's little 5-year-old with her. Thought nothing of it, thought nothing of it.
Despite being hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, Dana Sue is obsessed with spending money.
Dana Sue's issues with money are reported to have existed when she was a girl. Her brother described this. She said, I had to spend, it made me feel good. But the feeling wouldn't last. So the behavior became compulsive. She would repeat it to get the high again.
Psychologists have a term for compulsive shopping, oniomania. But it is not the only reason Dana kills. The next attack reveals more about Dana's motives. 2 weeks later in Lake Elsinore, California, 57-year-old Dorinda Hawkins is working alone in an antique store.
Dorinda was working at the time Dana had walked in and asked about picture frames.
Just wondering how much this one is.
This is actually $55.
Do you do gift wrapping?
Yes, we did. Give me a minute.
And it was there behind the framing tables that Dana strangled Dorinda.
Dorinda was begging for her life when Dana was strangling her. And Dorinda told her, you can have anything you want, take the cash. You know, I have 8 kids, let me, just let me live. And Dana told her, I'm not doing this for the money. She said that twice. And that really gives you an insight into what Dana was thinking when she was committing these crimes.
Thinking Dorinda is dead, Dana Sue steals just $25 and flees. But Dorinda is still alive. She's had a lucky escape from a woman with a long history of violence.
When Dana Sue was a young girl and she would be reprimanded or punished by her mother, it was reported that she frequently lashed out violently as a little girl and grew up to do it as a woman.
Dana Sue is motivated by more than money. She also has a deep-seated need for power, a need she satisfies with murder.
Dana liked the fight, and we believe that she killed because she enjoyed having power over somebody and watching them struggle and watching them die.
There is something hidden in Dana's past that explains not only why she killed, but who. As police trace the clues left by her shopping sprees, the final piece in the puzzle of Dana Sue's disturbed mind is about to be revealed.
We were able to do a paper trail with the credit cards and go to the different stores that she had used these credit cards at. And with the merchants, we were able to get a general description of this suspect.
I'm wondering if you've seen this woman.
The shopkeepers recognize the face. So do residents of Canyon Lake. Dana Sue Gray is arrested for murder.
When they finally did apprehend her, her Cadillac was full of grocery bags. Her house was full of expensive perfume. I mean, she had a veritable department store in her house.
We have statements proving that you had spent these cards.
Dana Sue Gray denies the murders. But while she is questioned by Detective Joe Greco, the case takes a horrifying turn.
In the interview, Dana began talking about finding a purse, and that purse belonged to a woman by the name of Dora Beebe.
In the station, at the same time, there were sheriff's deputies working another murder. Joe went to them and asked them the name of their victim. They told him Dora Beebe, and Joe instantly said, well, we have your suspect in the other room.
Earlier that day, Dana Sue had knocked on the door of a stranger, asking for a map.
So I knew that we had the right suspect in this case, but I did not know that on the same day that I was serving the search warrant, she was out killing her last victim.
Just wait a minute, then I'll be out.
Like Dana Sue's other victims, Dora Beebe is elderly, alone, and totally unprepared for a vicious attack.
Dora Beebe was found murdered inside her home. She was beaten with a clothes iron, and her skull was fractured.
To psychologists, the attack on Dora Beebe is the final clue in a revealing pattern. All 4 of Dana Sue's victims were elderly women. Women old enough to be her mother.
Dana Sue had a lot of unresolved anger toward her mother. I think these older women that Dana Sue killed represented her mother, and she was just unleashing rage and anger.
To avoid the death penalty, Dana Sue Gray pleads guilty to multiple murders. A desire for money, a need for power, and a hatred of her own mother. Dana Sue Gray's disturbed mind made her a ruthless killer who will spend the rest of her life behind bars.